Good evening, everyone. Very serious news and developments that you should know. What is happening between Trump and Mexico is something that has never happened before. It is known that America decides, and Mexico is one of the countries that says yes, but this time the subject was completely different, a strong and heavy dialogue, a subject that began when Trump returned to his homeland. White decided to continue his old game with Mexico. What did he want? He wanted to pressure them to stop the flow of immigrants across the American border. Okay, he told them, either stop these people or I will impose customs on you that will destroy your economy. Of course, Mexico found itself in a difficult situation, and the new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, tried to find a solution. In the middle, she agreed to send 100,000 soldiers to the border to clean up the game. No problem. 100,000 troops to the border, and Trump thought that he won as usual, and came out with a statement that made people feel that he is the one who controls the world, and he told you proudly that America is not an open bank, guys. We do not provide services for free, as if you will leave one and go out and say these two words to him after he felt that he was him. He won sweetly to the point that he began hinting that Europe should also pay the price of the protection it receives from America, and he did not speak. The president of Mexico came out with a fiery statement, one of the strongest and bravest statements in history. What did she say to him? She literally said to him, "You are the ones who need us, not us who need you," so that he would understand. She turned the table on him. She explained to him that Mexico is not just a country that exports its workers to America, and that the whole world can easily dispense with American products if Trump decides to play the protectionist policy. She told him that if the world decides to dispense with you behind the wall, you think that you are protected by 7 billion people who are ready to abandon you completely and dispense with America. No iPhone, no Life brand, no Hollywood, no McDonald's, no Disney. We can do without all of this at the same time. The president of Mexico, remember, is very smart. She incites the world against America and suppresses it. The world is in front of America. Guys, we must be anti-American. She told him, we are waiting for surrender. All this is about you. And at that time, America did not exist. Keep in mind, notice the biggest surprise. The issue is not only Mexico, so you can understand if the major countries in the Middle East decided to play the same game, because we as the Middle East are the largest consuming countries, so you can understand the Middle Eastern countries, which were the largest consuming countries in the world at that time, America. It is the one that will lose devastatingly. Come on, let's look at Egypt, for example. 120 million people. One of the most powerful powers. Buying in the world means a very huge consumer market for American products, from mobile phones to cars to medicines. Imagine if Egypt decided to reduce its dealings with American companies. These companies will not find an alternative market easily until they remain fully understanding, especially in sectors that rely on long-term Saudi companies as well, lest we forget what they have of a giant economy and oil that drives the global market. If they decide to reduce their investments in America or even start heading to Russia and China instead, the American economy will be affected in an unprecedented way. Collapse, in your words, in major economic collapses other than the disasters that Saudi Arabia is suffering from. Until they remain aware of the hundreds of billions invested in America, if they decide to transfer part of their investments to other markets, this may hit the American stock market due to the killing of China and Russia. They sit waiting for this moment and prepare. They enter as a ready and a very ready economic alternative, and they have proven in recent years that they are a very strong alternative to America. And if this happens, America will not only lose its influence in the Middle East, but will also see for the first time the countries that were its allies taking an independent path. The story here is not just a crisis between Trump and Mexico. These are indications that the world will not tolerate American arrogance much longer, and that it may also move to reduce its dependence on America, all of America. Of course, this statement has had a huge and very negative impact in the American media, because the words of the president of Mexico were clear and frank. You are the one who will be imprisoned inside the wall that you built yourself, and the world will not leave until you come back from the end. What is happening, and what are the latest developments? Before I start, I will quickly subscribe to the channel so that we know the developments in detail, and I will tell you the entire story except for a full month after Donald's return. Trump to the White House. Events are unfolding very quickly. Thousands of cases have been filed against Trump to the point that the whole world is watching and ready for anything. Decisions that could shake the stability of the American economy and international relations in the coming period. Trump, who returned to the presidency with the slogan "America First," began his second term with a series of decisions that were shocking to all countries, some of which were expected, but others were a nightmare even for his allies. From the first day in office, he began issuing executive orders. In general, he had a desire in demolishing everything that happened in the past 4 years, which Biden did, and imposed his complete control over American policies. The markets are now very tense. The American institutions, at least the countries that were dependent on America's stability, have begun to think about alternative plans for fear that the White House will turn into an arena for random decisions that will destroy the global economy instead of restoring it to its strength. One of the first decisions that Trump made after his return was to declare war. An economy open to China. China is now a superpower. What are you doing? This man is crazy. He made a promise before that you will tell him. He will wage an open economic war on China. What did the Pasha do? Imposing customs duties of 60% on all Chinese imports under the pretext that China is stealing American jobs and that he must protect the local industry. As a result, American markets began to receive the first blow because thousands of companies that were dependent on raw materials and components were cut off. Coming from China, it was forced to raise its prices very insanely, which made inflation rise again after it began to calm down at the end of 2024. Technology companies in particular were the first victims because almost everything in American electronics depends on China, from processor chips to electric car batteries. Apple, which was trying to avoid the crisis, found itself forced to pay billions of dollars in cost increases, and the American consumer, my eyes suddenly found themselves buying an iPhone that was 60% more expensive. Not only that, take this. China replied with a harsh blow. A ban was imposed on the import of American agricultural products. What does this mean? This means that thousands of American farmers, who were among Trump's biggest supporters, began to feel in danger because they simply lost the largest market that buys their products. The farmers who voted for Trump as the champion of economic nationalism became the first people to suffer from his decisions. We are standing against him now, but this is just the beginning. Come with me, and I will continue this. For you, Trump also decided to cut off military aid to Ukraine. This means that the Ukrainian army remains in a very critical situation in front of Russia, which quickly took advantage of the opportunity and began expanding its military operations further. Let us go to Europe, which was expecting that America would remain supportive. The Western coalition suddenly found itself alone in this confrontation. What did it do? This made some countries start. She is thinking about new scenarios like AZ. It is moving away from dependence on America. Germany and France have begun public discussions about creating a unified European army, and Britain has even begun to move closer to China in order to secure its commercial interests. This is the first indication that Trump is losing his global influence as quickly as possible. But as for Trump, all of this is not important at all, and he does not care about it or what is on his mind because he is convinced that America is not a bank open to the world and that he is not required to protect and Ukraine without direct compensation. The man sees that any step he makes wants money for it, any trifle that needs money for it. But the question here is whether this policy will really protect America, or will it make it lose all its global influence to other forces inside America? Let me tell you, the situation is not the best at all. Trump has started. He settled scores with his opponents directly, and the first thing he did was order the Ministry of Justice to open new investigations into cases against the Democrats. And the media professionals who stood against him in 2020, the news stations that were attacking, such as CNN and MSNBC, have become in a defensive position, and Congress itself is in an unprecedented state of division. The Republicans who supported Trump, I think, are trying to protect his decisions as they are supposed to, but the Democrats, who are the most active, see that what is happening is an attempted coup against American democratic institutions. The most dangerous thing remains. Keep in mind that some states that were opposed to Trump it threatens political rebellion, as we talked about earlier in this episode, the state of California, which is the strongest economy in America, has calls to secede from the federal government. And if this happens, we are talking about a political crisis that could lead to an actual civil war. So that you can understand, the story is not small right now. California is in the process of collecting signatures to secede from America, but the real crisis is in the next episode. I will tell you in detail about the issue that is happening in California, its secession and the signatures, what happened, how many signatures, and all this talk. Let us just return to our main topic, the real crisis. The real crisis will begin when Trump's economic policies directly hit the pockets of the American citizen, with prices rising due to the trade war, and with the increasing deficit in the federal budget due to the cessation of foreign aid. And with his attempts to finance his giant projects, such as the border wall with Mexico, taxes on the middle class will begin to rise, and inflation, which was the same throughout the world, is trying to control it. It is completely out of control in America. Foreign investors, take your time, have begun withdrawing their money from the market. The US and the dollar are beginning to face the biggest crisis of confidence in decades, especially with the attempts of China and Russia to promote alternative currencies such as the yuan and the ruble in international trade. This is the biggest surprise. So what does all this mean? It means that America is not only losing its economic position, but it is also approaching a financial crisis. In fact, it could be worse than the 2008 crisis. The surprise is that only 1 month into his second term, Trump began to lose support even from some Republicans who were supportive of him, because they saw that his policies were not only dividing America, but they were also damaging the economy, which was the basis of his election campaign on Wall Street. Investors began to warn that the continuation of Trump's policy in this way could lead to a collapse in the stock market within a few months. Even if there has been an economic collapse, this means that Trump will be the first president in American history to enter America into an economic recession twice in 2 different states. The first time was his term from 2016 and the second time 2025, which is coming. It is very difficult to imagine what is coming, all collapses of America, disasters, wars, economic collapses, so expect everything. What is happening between Trump and Mexico is not just a passing crisis on the border. This is a confrontation between 2 powers. Each of them has strong pressure cards. And the surprise, my friend, is that Mexico is not the weak party, as Trump imagines, to make her understand that she is weak. And so, no, Mexico is not just a country that exports cheap workers. In order for you to understand, but it is also an essential part of global supply chains, a very huge part. Any economic crisis that happens there will immediately prevent American companies themselves. Shem Baun explained this scenario in a genius way, and it was a genius, excellent and very frank and clear statement when she said that the world can easily do without American products. It's meaning if Trump decided to besiege Mexico, the whole world would be able to replace iPhones with Samsung or Huawei devices and be able to leave Levi's brand and go to Zara and can dispense with Ford and Chevrolet cars and buy Toyota and Kia. Even Hollywood, which has always been a symbol of American soft power, can be replaced by European and Latin American production, and McDonald's, which is a symbol of American fast food, is very easy to replace with other brands in different markets. The idea here is not that the world can dispense with America completely, but it is possible if America continues with Trump's isolationist economic policies. It suddenly finds itself no longer present on the international scene in any way, nor will it remain the global centre as it always was. But the most dangerous part of Champeau's words was the warning she directed directly to Washington, when it said that 7 billion consumers around the world would decide to stop buying American products, so America took advantage of itself. It will collapse, and all she will have left is the racist wall that she has imprisoned herself inside. The message is that the world will start looking for real alternatives, and at that time, America. She is the one who will be the biggest loser in order to remain understanding, so stick to it. This was a big warning to all the giant American companies that depend on global markets for their quarters, and who could suddenly find themselves in a real economic dilemma if Trump's policies cause them to lose the markets that they depend on. The problem here is that Trump does not see it. The big picture is that he sees Mexico as a weak country that depends on America. But he does not understand that Mexico is part of an economic system. It is universal, and any decision against it will have repercussions. It is huge on the American economy itself. The battle is a matter of pressure. On the other hand, Mexico and the world realize that the era of American monopoly is over, and that there remain alternatives for every American product and service, as China has proven completely. What will happen in the coming months will determine which party has the real power and whether America will be able to impose its control like in the past, or if Mexico and the world will be able to turn the table around. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write to us in comments what might happen or what you can expect. Follow the next episode because there will be very important talk between mysterious agreements between Trump and Netanyahu, because they will gather today in Washington at the White House. Next episode at 6 p.m.